Many of you that follow Scott so faithfully on Facebook know that this past weekend, Father's Day weekend, he suffered a serious medical crisis and was rushed to the hospital, receiving 3 blood transfusions. We all had him in prayer and thought and questioned whether or not the lights would ever come on again in the workshop. Yeah. Let's change that mood a little bit. Uh-huh. I'm back! I love this music, but I'm gonna stop it for just a second. Well, it is good. It's only been a few days since I was released from the hospital, and it is great to be back. And those of you on YouTube that don't do the Facebook thing probably have no idea what I'm talking about or what that intro was all about. But leading into Father's Day weekend this year, 2020, I was having some real serious symptoms of shortness of breath, rapid heart rate, dizziness, extreme fatigue. And I toughed it out for probably a little bit over a week. And then finally on Saturday of Father's Day weekend, went into the hospital and expected that they would probably say, hey, you're dehydrated. Even though in my mind, I'd been drinking a lot of water and a lot of liquids. But instead they told me your hemoglobin that carries oxygen to all your muscles and to all your body is critically low, right around 6.2. Any of you that are medical people probably know right away how serious that is. And so instead of being able to leave the hospital after maybe a quick little IV or something like that, they said, we're going to put you in an ambulance and we're going to take you about 25 miles away to Green Bay, Wisconsin, where you're probably going to receive a transfusion. Well, transfusion times 3 is what they ultimately ended up doing. And I was in the hospital from Saturday until Monday, and finally they let me out on Monday. I did have a checkup just, well, about 24 hours ago, and they still are really concerned because the hemoglobin is higher than it was when I went in, but it's still nowhere near where it should be. So if my energy seems a little bit less in this premiere than it normally is, I'll point at that doggone hemoglobin as the culprit. So, but I had to get back in front of you just to, number one, just put your minds to ease. I've gotten so many posts on Facebook, so many calls, so many emails, so many contacts from people around the world, extremely concerned, and that means a lot. So, all right. Well, what's up with this machine in front of us? It's obviously the Royce of Singers sewing machines, Singer 201-2. Which has been sitting here ready to do this premiere for a number of days now. Maybe it's been longer than a number of days. And this particular machine belongs to Margaret Mayhew of Bartlesville, Oklahoma. And Bartlesville, Oklahoma, if you're not familiar with that town, is pretty close to Tulsa, Oklahoma. And Margaret made the request about wanting to own a Royce of Singers sewing machines. I didn't have one in my private collection. All of them had been sold, and so I did source this one specifically for her. I go through a vetting process that drives the sellers of sewing machines absolutely bonkers. Close to, I would say, about 85 questions that I run them through before I make a buying decision on behalf of that customer. So this was not just an arbitrary machine that I saw and scooped it up. I took this particular gentleman that happens to be a fellow collector, and we know each other quite well. He's from the East Coast, but he knows the routine. If I'm reaching out about a machine, I'm going to take him through the same rigors that I do any other seller that I happen to have contact with. So after the 80 plus questions, finding out all the details about this machine, the history of it, the provenance, the maintenance schedule, and etc., I did make a buying decision on behalf of Margaret. And this particular machine, if you want to look it up just for practice, the serial number is A as in Alpha, F as in Foxtrot, excuse me, 436766. So again, AF 436766. If you look it up, what you're going to find is this machine was born February 27th, 1940. And the manufacturing group for this particular machine was way below the threshold of 50,000. Remember, I've told you in other premieres that as soon as you get a machine that has a manufacturing group size of less than 50,000, the value of that machine goes up exponentially. Well, Margaret Mayhew's Singer 201-2 that you can see before you right now has a manufacturing group size of only 10,000. That's serious. That raises the threshold of the value of this machine to a totally different level. That's real low in manufacturing group size. So it's a very valuable machine even before I touched it. But after spending probably close to 16 hours on this machine, working from bobbin the balance wheel inside and out, and obviously did some work on the paint patina as well. When a customer requests a machine, the paint patina is really not a thing that's factored into the equation. It's not something really that I calculate the value of my time into, but it's like an addiction. Any of you that know what I'm talking about, where you go through the house and you've got to tidy it up, or you keep your car just right, or your sewing machine has to be just, standing tall, looking good, always ready to be presented. That's kind of the way I feel about the machines that come through the workshop. So Margaret's is no exception, and I did spend a fair amount of time just kind of cleaning the paint up a little bit. It's not brand new paint. It has not been re-clear coated. It's original paint, original decals, but it's a good looking machine. Don't you agree? And so I know Margaret's going to be real pleased and proud to have this eventually reach her doorstep in Bartlesville, Oklahoma. Now, just a reminder about the 201s when did they come on the scene? I think this is always important to revisit. I've shared it a couple of times in premieres, but out of sight, out of mind, even if I don't look at something on a regular basis, it really isn't something that I think about. It's something that I might not even be able to recall right away. So just a reminder, the Royce of Singers sewing machines, the 201 series, came on the scene in 1935. And it was manufactured all the way until 1961. So from 1935 to 1961. And it also has that coveted rotary hook. It's got that convenience of the drop-in bobbin, and it's just a powerhouse. Even though the motor is only 0.6 amps, it has that direct drive benefit. of the gear to gear from the balance wheel to the motor. So you have positive traction, you have immediate power, and there's never a need to have to replace a belt on this particular machine because it's direct drive. And again, as I had mentioned in other videos and other premieres, the 201-2 oftentimes is kind of attached to the Singer 1591. I refer to the Singer 1591 as the little brother of the 201-2 because they're both potted motor designs, even though they have different hook systems. Again, the 201-2 comes with a rotary hook. The 1591 comes with an oscillating hook. But they're so similar, and people oftentimes associate them together. So just reminding you again, the Singer 1591 did predate the Singer 201-2. The Singer 1591 came on the scene in 1932, 3 years before the Singer 201. But it was not on the scene as long. It was on the scene until 1956. I'm referring to the 1591. And again, the Singer 201-2 was on the scene until around 1961. But that's just kind of reminding you again, kind of about the roots of these great potted motor machines. What else do I want to tell you? Kind of looking at my notes here because just getting out of the hospital, I'm not running at full steam. I'm not 100% yet, so I've got a couple little cheat notes. The other thing I'll mention real quick, and I'll just kind of zoom in on so we can jump into some sew-offs. Let me kind of zoom in on the needle here. So just a couple quick tips for you. When you're inserting a needle into the 201-2, you want to make sure that the flat side of the needle is to the left. The 201-2 is not set up like some of the other Singer Slant-O-Matic series machines where you can only insert the needle in one way. It's kind of a foolproof option where you can only slide it in one way. On this one, you can do it wrong and you'll suffer for it. So make sure when you're setting this machine up or when you're replacing a needle that the flat side is to the left. And then ultimately you're going to be threading this machine from right to left. So many machines, I would say the majority of machines, you're oftentimes going to be threading from left to right. Not so on the Royce of Singers sewing machines. You have to thread it right to left, or again you're going to be suffering skip stitches and all kinds of other headaches. So just make note of that if you either have one or if you're looking at securing a 201-2. Okay, so why don't we do this? Why don't we get busy? And I'm going to select some music to play and we're going to jump into some sew-offs. And again, valuing the feedback that you give me. I've intentionally tried to pick some materials that are considerably thinner than I typically will use in conformation sew-offs. You've seen a lot of my videos probably, and I'm always going for the gusto. I'm going to go for 14 ounces of leather. I'm going to go for eight layers of U.S. Army grade canvas. I'm going to be going for multiple layers of heavy grade denim. I'm always pushing that machine, not to the max, but I'm pushing it to demonstrate that the capacity of that machine after it's gone through my restorative process. And I did get some feedback in one of the recent premieres. I believe it came from a couple of folks, but in particular it came from my friend Piper from Canada, who said, Scott, love to see all the heavy duty sew-offs, but can you also show us the machine operating with real thin layers as well, because that can sometimes be tricky. So great feedback, great advice. Not only heard, but I'm taking action on it as well, and you'll see that in this particular premiere. And I do one of my blah blah blahs, but I think I'll probably make myself dizzy if I do that, so I'm not going to do that. So let me flip my screen around. I'm going to pick a little bit of music out, and we're going to see if we can start to put Margaret's 201-2 through the paces after it's been sitting here patiently waiting for me to return to it so that it can eventually get heading out to Bartlesville, Oklahoma, to Margaret Mayhew. All right, now what I searched was gospel. I was just curious, how does YouTube have their songs that I'm able to use categorized under the category of gospel? And one of them, believe it or not, and any of you that love baseball are going to say, amen. That's absolutely spot on, Scott. That's absolutely spot on. Makes total sense. One of the songs that came up under gospel is Take Me Out to the Ballpark. I'm not making it up, folks. So let me pop that on and get set up over by Margaret's machine, and we'll see if we can do a little bit of sewing. And I'll turn the volume down, but I will have a little bit of music going while we're doing this. Cracker Jack, care if they ever come back. It's root for the home team. Come on, y'all. They don't win, it's a shame. 'Cause it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, they're out at the old ball game. I can see this being gospel. This is sweet. All right. Oh, I'll mention one other thing real quick. When you're inserting your bobbin into the raceway to drop it in, do not put it, do I have my screen turned around? Do not put it with the thread over the top. Put it with the thread feeding underneath. Let me see if I can show you. It's got to be feeding underneath when you drop it in, okay? So the bobbin ultimately will be turning clockwise. It'll be turning clockwise when you insert it, okay? So again, the thread on the bottom, not on the top. Where am I? Not on the top, okay? I just wanted to mention that. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to be sewing is a super thin layer of, it almost looks like a denim cotton mix. And it is like paper thin, as you can see. So let's buzz down that and see how Margaret's machine does on a super duper thin layer of material. All right, here we go. This just runs smoother than silk, folks. Smoother than silk. Yeah, baby. Take me out to the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jack. We don't care if they ever come back, but it's root for the home team. If they don't win, it's a shame. 'Cause it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, they're out at the ball game. Woo, ba-da-doo-ba-doo-ba. That was a tricky ending. Man, they caught me totally off guard. Oh, that's so funny. They just totally slowed it up on me. Oh, you tricky guys, you tricky guys. All right, so let's see if we can. I'm going to do my best to show you these stitches on here. So I believe, got to get myself orientated here. I believe that this is our top stitch. I kind of lost track, to be perfectly honest with you. But the stitch formation, the stitch definition is just exactly as it should be. The spacing, the formation is absolutely spot on. As a matter of fact, let me see if I can do this instead of, I think we're a little bit further out. Do my best to, hopefully it'll stay where I put it, hopefully. And we'll see if we can zoom on these a little bit even more. So this again, I believe, is our top stitch. The spacing, formation is absolutely spot on. Exactly as you can see through the camera. We come down and around, there's no difference. I think the orientation of the material may be a little bit, it's so thin it's barely standing up, so it may have turned a little bit, but the stitch definition, the quality of the stitch is just absolutely as it should be. So let's do this. Let's go ahead, I'm going to come out on this shot a little bit. Let's go ahead and turn it around and see how that lock stitch looks. Again, when you're dealing with balancing stitch, you always have to remember it's like a tug of war. Oh, that thing is so thin. Stay, stay, stay. It is not going to cooperate. I'll do my best, folks. It's like a tug of war. So that upper tension control, this right here, is going to be controlling how ultimately that lock stitch looks. Right now we're looking at the top stitch. And then that bobbin case below in the raceway is going to be controlling how that top stitch looks. So in other words, the upper tension pulls up and the lower tension area in the raceway pulls down. So right now as we're looking at this top stitch, and you can see through the camera, it's looking really good. That's a product of how well that bobbin case area down in the raceway is doing its job. Once we flip it over and we look at that lock stitch, then the credit goes to, I'm just totally off my game. You can tell I just am getting back on my feet. We're looking at the lock stitch right now. I'm totally on Minute Maid. So the lock stitch we're looking at right now, I explained it correctly, but I was off my mark. The lock stitch we're looking at right now is a product of that upper tension. So that upper tension has done a fabulous job in defining how this stitch looks, because we already looked at the other side, the top stitch. I'm doing my best, folks. Maybe I'm jumping back into the game a little bit too fast, so just give me grace and be patient. But again, I think our lock stitch is absolutely as it should be. And again, we're going through a material that is super duper thin. And so it really, in some respects, it does test that machine tensioning a little bit more. So I'm going to toss this to the side. This super thin layer of cotton blend. And boy, when you look at it from that angle, like straight down, you can really see. We'll have to look at that at the end so you can see these up close and personal even more. But I'll throw that to the back for right now. So now what I have is some compressed felt. And compressed felt, as you already know, is it's not an easy material to sew through. It was on one of the other premieres where I was going through 3 layers of it, and it actually snapped a Schmetz needle. Any of you that know anything about the German engineered Schmetz needles already know that Schmetz needles are almost always bulletproof. They're very, very strong, well-made needles. One of my favorite needles, I would say. And it going through 3 layers of this compressed felt on that other premiere, it actually broke the Schmetz needle. So I'm going to give this a go again on Margaret's machine. We're going to go ahead and fold it in half to get us up to 2 layers. and then fold it one more time to get us all the way up to 3 layers. And we're going to see how this 201-2 does with a task like this. Not an easy task, folks, at all. Don't be deceived. Felt is something that many of you may have used when you were kids in school. They used it for different projects, and it's never thought to be the equivalent of like a leather or a canvas or some other heavy grade type of material. But it is, because of the way it's woven, because of the woven nature of it, it is some stuff that can really, really put you through the paces, and can put a machine through the paces as well. So I'm just, you know me, I'm just cleaning up the bed a little bit here. So let's give this a go. Let's go through 3 layers of some of this compressed felt, and I want you to listen to the machine. I can also, as I'm looking over my shoulder, I can see that you can see the thickness of what we're going through. Probably, if you were to convert it into ounces, kind of like we measure leather, it's probably the equivalent of about 8 to 10 ounces of compressed felt. So once again, not an easy task at all. All right, are you ready? Of course you are. Here we go. I am having to hold back. I am having to harness the power of Margaret's machine like you wouldn't believe. I spent a lot of time on Margaret's motor, and the proof is in the pudding as far as how easily this machine is going to demonstrate, just as it just did on compressed felt, how easily it's going to demonstrate the various sew-offs we do in this premiere today. All right, so let's take a look at this first of all. So this is going to be our top stitch right here. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can line it up in front of the presser foot and see if we can zoom in on it a little bit. And then we'll turn it around and look at that lock stitch. And as you can already see, just at the initial point of this, that is a brag-worthy stitch. The spacing, the formation, the integrity of the stitch, exactly as it should be. From start to finish. I wanted to be a little bit dramatic there and not just say start to finish. I wanted to do the finish at the finish line. Maybe that medication is still kicking in, you never know. So again, we've got a gorgeous stitch, the spacing, the formation, the integrity of the stitch. And any of you that sew regularly with woven type materials already know when you go through woven materials, there are so many opportunities for failure, because woven materials will manipulate what that needle is trying to do in concert with the thread, and will cause everything from skip stitches to distorted stitches. And as we turn it over, what are we going to see? Well, let me kind of lean it like this first of all forward and turn my screen around so I can actually see hopefully what you're seeing. And I can't see anything, so hold on a second. Because I don't have the camera locked in place, daggone it. Alright, now I have it locked in place. So now if I try to move the camera or something, it's not going to be all messed up. So what I was going to show you is, and make sure I'm correct here, yep. So our top stitch you've already seen. We've already seen that from start to finish. Absolutely spot on. But let me show you again from the side kind of what we're going through. 3 layers of compressed felt. And as we turn it over, are we going to see anything dramatic, anything shocking? Well, maybe a gorgeous stitch, that's about it. So as I turn it over, here's our lock stitch. And let me just kind of invert it here since I had it flipped the wrong way. Now let's take a close look at this lock stitch as well, if it will stay in one spot, hopefully. All right. So this again is our lock stitch we're looking at right now. From start to finish, the spacing of the formation, the integrity of the stitch, there's just no difference. It's absolutely consistent from, now I have to say backwards, it's absolutely consistent from finish to start. So this is an absolute pass on the part of Margaret's 201-2, demonstrating that 3 layers of compressed felt that will certainly challenge other machines out there. It might even stop some machines in their tracks, is not going to slow down this Royce of Singers sewing machine. So let me throw this to the back. I'm going to grab a little bit of a drink and put on a little bit of music as an interlude. And let's see what else we have under gospel. Any other baseball songs? I don't think so. So the next one is called, I'm looking at a couple of them. Why don't we put on Midnight Special? Midnight Special, labeled inspirational. We'll see what this one sounds like. You know, when I was kind of laid up for a little bit, you've got extra time on your hands to kind of reflect and, you know, kind of think about things. And after getting back home after that ambulance ride and time in the hospital and stuff, I thought about an opportunity that I had a number of years ago to serve in a small community. Actually, it's, I guess compared to Oconto, it's a big community. A community just north of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I had a chance to serve as a police and fire commissioner. And one of the things that they do as kind of an initiation when you're appointed to be a commissioner is they have you get involved with the EMTs, riding along with them, collaborating and working with them. Same thing with the fire department and same thing with the police department. And so after my ambulance ride, I thought about my experience back then working with EMTs and with firefighters. And what I was leading up to is that they take you through an initiation where you have to go through what's called a live burn. And that's where they intentionally will, let's say that there's an owner that wants to demolish a building, but they don't want to pay to have it demolished. They can contact the local fire department, and if the fire department agrees, they then will set that structure on fire in a controlled manner, and they'll use it for training exercises for the fire department. And that's what they did in this case. And as a commissioner, I had to put on all the firefighter gear and go up in the ladder truck, go into the fire itself, and you'll see the various pictures. I'll just share this with you, and I'm only sharing it because this is something that when I had that downtime and I got home and I was like on the couch, these pictures came to mind, and I thought I would share them with you since I just had the privilege of being served by the Oconto fire department EMT squad. So that's a picture of the live burn itself. I don't know if you can see that in the shot or not. I think you can. And that's actually me right there. And you can see the structure has already been set on fire. And we're beginning the process now of evaluating the best way to fight this blaze. And I think there's another shot of me all the way up in this ladder truck as well. Really a cool experience, very cool experience. Let's see. So here is this brand new police and fire commissioner with all of his fire gear on, posing for the camera, getting ready to blast that fiery blaze from the outside. Where am I? There I am. Yeah, that was a totally, let's take one for the camera, because I don't even think at that point they'd showed me how to pull the handle back to shoot the water. Now this is a bit embarrassing, almost like that one picture I showed you long ago in one of the contests that I did, where I was having you guess the famous people that were in the different shots with a sewing machine. And one of them was Judy Garland, that played in obviously The Wizard of Oz. And she's on the wrong side of the sewing machine. Well, in this case, you've got a brand new police and fire commissioner that is posing for a picture, and it looks like I'm on the wrong side of the sewing machine, but or I should say the wrong side of the fire hose. Let me actually hold on a second. And that's a firefighter there that's kind of assisting me. Well, the fire is behind us, and this brand new police and fire commissioner, this silly guy right here, Scott, is spraying the water the wrong direction. What's up with that? Well, this is not actually a Judy Garland experience, because what I'm doing, when you're fighting a fire, you have to keep the fire engines that are near the blaze from basically baking the paint right off of them, because the heat is so intense. So periodically you'll turn the hose away from the fire and you'll turn it towards the emergency vehicles, the fire, the fire engines, the EMT, if there's an ambulance there or whatever, and you actually spray the vehicles down to keep the metal cool enough that it's not going to damage the finish. So that's what I was doing. You can't see it, it's kind of off camera, but I was spraying down the fire engine so that it didn't get too hot. But and this next one is nearly identical. I think this is one where I was actually up in the ladder truck, which if you've never been, if you're not a heights person, I'm not. And they'd say, hey, do you want to go up all the way up in the ladder truck and then climb back down? Okay, yeah, I can do that. So here I am, all the way in the top of the ladder truck with the fire chief, and I don't remember who the other person was up there with me, but we went to the very top of the fire and kind of looking down on the fire, and then just, kind of deciding what our next plan of attack is going to be to put that blaze out. This is a duplicate. It's another picture there of me, yeah, getting ready to shoot the fire. A couple duplicates of this. And here's the fire engine that I was actually spraying. You can see how close it was, or how close it is in the shot, to the actual structure fire. And then all of a sudden it becomes apparent why you'd have to spray that fire engine down to keep the paint from basically peeling off because of the intense heat. You basically have the structure fire right there, all that heat generating, and then you've got the fire engine in close proximity to it. Can't tell if I'm smiling or grimacing there. I might be grimacing because by the time the fire got to this stage and it kind of flashed over and all that, we had already been inside of the structure. I actually went inside of the structure with firefighters, and we actually had a hose or two hoses with us, I think. And we actually, as we kind of watched that fire kind of creep up the wall and start to hit the ceiling area of the room that we were in and start to come over the top of us, they call it a flashover. And it's real dangerous because if you're in a building and you don't notice that the fire is going from the wall to the roof and starting to flash over, it can go all the way across the roof, down the other wall, and then you're totally trapped. So as it started to crest on the ceiling, the chief that was with me to make sure that I stayed alive as a new commissioner said, "Scott, go ahead and hit it." So I hit it with the water, not realizing that the hood that firefighters wear that protects the back of their neck was not tucked all the way down properly. And so what happened is when I hit that fire starting to go over the top of us on the ceiling with that icy cold water, it immediately flashed that water to a boiling point, and then that boiling water dropped down and hit the back of my neck. You could only imagine. So that's why I say that's either a smile or a grimace. I think it's probably a grimace because I got a pretty good burn on the back of my neck. And let's see, what else do I have? Oh, this is a cool shot. One of the things I had a chance to do for my oldest son, who's now in his 20s, when he had a birthday coming, he was fascinated that his dad was working with the police and fire department. And so the chief allowed Aaron, this is Aaron right here who's now 22, I believe, allowed Aaron to come to the firehouse and get a personal tour of the firehouse for his birthday by the fire chief. And here I'm on the left, obviously, and Aaron, I don't think Aaron is laughing. I don't think I'm tickling him. I might be. I think the sun's in his eyes. But here we are sitting in this cool fire engine, and Aaron's getting a real neat treat on his birthday. And then this is the fire chief that showed Aaron how a small little pressurized container, almost like a glorified squirt gun, can be really, really a real effective tool in putting out small fires, but also can be kind of fun to squirt your dad with, which I think they did. So there's the chief, and you can just see Aaron kind of tucked behind him right there. And the chief is explaining how this cool gadget works. So this relates to sometimes when you have an unexpected event in life, you have time to reflect back on other events in your life. And that's kind of why I shared these with you. I hope you enjoyed that. Another dimension of Scott. I didn't know Scott was a police and fire commissioner. That's pretty cool. All right, let's get back to Margaret's machine and do some additional sew-offs. Let me find some music to throw on, and I'll grab a quick drink as well. So I think that last one again was called Midnight Special, and now we're going to play one called Red Eye. Red Eye, like the singer Red Eye, 66 class. And this one is funky, so this ought to be fun. Grabbing another quick drink. I gotta do a shameless plug real quick for Nature's Touch lemonade. This stuff is really, really, really good if you've never had it. It's actually got some real lemonade in it. I think part of it is flavoring, but it's really, really good stuff. All right, let's do some more sewing on Margaret's 201-2. I can see why this is funky. Oh yeah. All right, and I've got it turned way down, so you should be able to hear Margaret's machine just fine. All right, so what I'm going to sew off on now is a little bit of leather. And a little bit of leather is kind of an understatement. We're talking 2 layers of protected full grain leather, probably about 10 ounces of leather. Not an easy task. Well, this Royce of Singers will make it look easy. All right, let's see how we do. All right, here we go. All right, let's take a look at these stitches. Here's our top layer. Boy, you just never appreciate how fabulous an organ can sound until you hear it in a piece of music like this. Amazing. Just like these stitches. Again, we're talking about 10 ounces of protected full grain leather, 2 layers of protected full grain leather. Look at that. From start to finish, exactly as it should be. Look at that from the side. You can just see the grain of that just saying, yeah, good luck, buddy. Good luck trying to get through. And Margaret's 201-2 said, yeah, it's going to happen, pal. It's going to happen. Absolutely beautiful stitching. Start to finish. So let me come out of this shot a little bit. We'll turn this around and look and see if we can see that lock stitch through the nap. It's going to be a little bit of a challenge. Again, the nap kind of conceals or kind of masks being able to see those stitches quite a bit. So I'm probably going to see if I can pull it back. Let me turn that camera screen around, see if I can really zoom in on this. That's the odd thing about this camera that I have is, if any of you saw that premiere I did where I kind of got away from the workshop and went down by the Pelicans, The zoom factor of this camera is just phenomenal, but when you're in different settings, it almost like it has like a smart chip in it. It says, okay, you're inside now, we're not going to zoom as far, because that's kind of what it does. It doesn't zoom as far. So here's our lock stitch. Let me see if I can line that up. Here's our lock stitch. I'm going to do my best to pull it back, but it's an absolute spot on lock stitch. The spacing, the formation, the integrity of the stitch, which is really hard to see through that leather nap, is just exactly as it should be. There you can see it a little bit better. I'm kind of looking over my shoulder. But a beautiful lock stitch, and obviously the top stitch is just absolutely brag-worthy. This is the type of stitch you want on a piece of merchandise or a handbag or something like that you're going to be selling out of your small business. And when a machine is optimized perfectly like Margaret's machine, this is what you can expect. And look at again what we went through. We didn't do a super light sew off. This machine is capable of doing that. I've already demonstrated that to you with that light cotton blend that we kind of opened with. But if you need to do leather sewing, you'll have people out there that are trying to sell their light industrial machines for thousands of dollars, and they'll say, well, there's no Singer that'll do that. Yeah, there is. And you know what? This is not a one-off. You can sew leather like this all day long with a properly optimized 201-2, and you will get from the start of your sewing to the end of your sewing at the end of the day, stitching like that consistently. And obviously you might want to, depending on how many layers and how many hours of sewing you're doing, changing out the needle is always a wise decision. But I'll tell you one thing, the stitch quality of a fully optimized machine, there's no comparison. So I'm going to throw that to the rear as well. 2 layers of protected full grain leather, an absolute slam dunk pass. And we're going to keep on moving forward. I think what we're going to sew next is some heavy grade denim. And we'll go ahead and see how this 201-2 does with that task. And I won't even put any music on this time. I won't even put any music on. So here we've got a single layer of heavy grade denim. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to buzz down just a single layer, and then I'm going to fold it to do multiple layers, just so we can honor the request and input of Piper and others that said, hey, can we see the machines doing light load as well along with heavy load? So absolutely. So let's do this. Let's line it up. We're going to buzz down with a single layer, and then I will fold it, and we will go down and do multiple layers after that. All right, are you ready? Here we go. Smoother than silk. That's the only way I can describe Margaret's machine after I've gotten done with it. It just sews like a dream. Sews like a dream. Well, I hope you folks are doing well. Obviously my life has had a couple little bumps in it, but that's what makes life interesting, isn't it? When you get those bumps in life and you find yourself coming out the other end, and you feel, ultimately you feel like you're going to be stronger for the challenges. So it's all well and good, right? It's all well and good. All right, so here's our single layer of heavy grade denim. If I can get it lined up correctly, I'm going to zoom in on that, and then we'll turn it around and look at that lock stitch as well. So here's our top stitch right now. Again, a product of how well that bobbin case and raceway is operating. And we've got some really, really lovely stitching. I might almost increase, actually, let me say this differently. I might actually decrease that upper tension just slightly to allow that bobbin case to have a little bit more victory. When you're sewing a real light layer, sometimes to get better stitch definition, you have to tweak that tension a little bit, and typically it's going to be the top of the material. That's a real good looking stitch, but I think we could get it even more defined if we were to back off that upper tension a little bit and have that bobbin case pulled down a little bit harder to define it even more. But here you can see right at the launch of it, it's absolutely spot on. And as we come out on it in its totality, you can see it's a real good looking stitch. But I would tweak it a little bit just because I'm super persnickety when it comes to the stitch output. So here's our lock stitch now, which is a product of what? If you said it's a product of the upper tension control, you're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct. So this is our lock stitch. Let's go ahead and zoom on this and take a look at this. Single layer. Exactly as it should be. Spacing, the formation, the integrity of the stitch is absolutely spot on. And it actually, you can kind of look, if you look real close, you can actually see that it's a little bit more defined than it probably needs to be. And that's what's telling me when I'm sewing real light, we could actually reduce that upper tension a little bit to allow that to loosen this a little bit more on the bottom, which would in fact then tighten up the top a little bit more, bring it back into balance. So, but again, a real good looking stitch, both top and bottom. I'm just saying if you want to aim towards perfection, that's what I would recommend in this case. Okay, so let's do this now. Let's go ahead and fold this and see if we can get multiple layers, and we'll see how our 201-2 that belongs to Margaret out of the great state of Oklahoma does then. So I'm going to go ahead and take this. Do I have my camera turned around? Yes. So let's see how we're going to do this. I think I'm going to tuck this, the stitching we already did, I'm going to tuck it on the inside. So let's see, we got 2 layers now, 3 layers. Looks like I'm going to end up with about 4 layers of heavy grade denim, which, if you look at it from the side, it's not a walk in the park, folks. So let's see how 4 layers shows up when we do this. I totally forgot. I still have my little, where's my arm? I still have my little hospital band on. I forgot to pull it off. Oh, golly. All right, so here we go. 4 layers of heavy grade denim. You know, there's just no challenge doing something like this. There's other folks that have contacted me over the years talking about their machines, not just 201-2s that are challenged by something like this, 4 layers of heavy grade denim, but they've had Pfaff machines, they've had Berninas, they've had Husqvarna Vikings. So when you get to 4 layers of heavy grade denim, it's not an automatic slam dunk. Oh, that's going to be easy. It can be challenging for a machine unless it's been on this workbench. Unless it's been on this workbench and had the benefit of being optimized. Let's take a look at these stitches. Again, 4 layers of heavy grade denim. This is going to be our top stitch. It actually looks like from the angle, I can actually angle this a little bit more. It's going to make it easier to see the stitching probably. Yeah, that's what I didn't do with some of the other sew-offs we already looked at, is I didn't have it angled quite enough in relation to the camera angle. So here again is our top stitch, absolutely spot on. 4 layers of heavy grade denim, start to finish. Wait, start to finish. Absolutely beautiful stitching. Exactly as it should be. Exactly as it should be. So let's zoom out a little bit. I'll turn this around. And let's see how that lock stitch looks. All right, I'm not sure. It's not level because the material is kind of tucked down a little bit. Hopefully you'll be able to see it, because it's an absolutely drop dead gorgeous lock stitch too. And again, we're talking 4 layers of heavy grade denim. Absolutely gorgeous. That's the whole point in the work that I do. You can get a machine that gets all polished up, you can get all the other maintenance done, but when everything comes to the end, if you're not getting a stitch that presents like this, what's the point? The stitch quality is everything. And this is a definite pass on 4 layers of heavy grade denim. And also on a single layer of heavy grade denim as well, because we did both on that. What do we have next? I got all kinds of fun stuff in here in my little sew-off stack. I think what I'll do next, I think I'll do Italian leather, and we're going to do 2 layers of it. Maybe what I'll do is see if I can do it back to back. That way we'll have an easy way to see the stitching on both ends. But in the meantime, right now, I'm going to pop on a little bit of music to inspire me, because like I said, I'm not running at full steam yet, so a little bit of music will help me go strong as well. So the last one we did was called Red Eye, if I'm not mistaken. Red Eye, and now we're going to do Minor Blues for Booker. Minor Blues for Booker. Turn this way down so you can enjoy the music but also hear the machine. Okay, so now what we have is some Italian leather. Let's see if we can zoom in on the needle and we'll go through this Italian leather. And again, I'm going to put it back to back so that you're able to see that lock stitch better. Because as soon as you get that nap involved, it just really makes it hard. You know what I mean? You know what I mean. All right, let's take a look at this. So here's the thickness that we're going through. 2 layers of Italian leather, and again, I did it back to back instead of doing the nap on the bottom, which on this, it probably wouldn't be nearly as bad as that protected full grain leather. I'm still thinking if we do it like this, then it's really going to make it easy for us to see that stitch quality a lot better. So let me slide it into place. And let's see how Margaret's 201-2 does with this task. All right, here we go. I kind of went up and down on that just a little bit. Just a little bit. I was debating if I was going to blast it or whether I was going to hold it back. So now to keep, since my head isn't 100% clear, I'm going to keep it like this so that I remember, since they're identical basically, this is going to be our top. We'll look at that first. Just clip these threads real quick. Alright, so let's get this into place. This will be our top stitch. And then we'll take a look at the lock stitch. The This is some good jazz, very good jazz. I don't know why it came up under gospel, but it did. All right, let's see how these stitches look. So again, what we have here is 2 layers of Italian leather. Now I'm looking all of a sudden at my battery and I'm thinking I better get myself moving faster. Beautiful stitching, isn't it? Look at that end. Oh, jeez. I've said it before, there are plastic machines around the world screaming right now. Don't do it! All right, let's spin this around and look at our lock. Okay, hopefully that's the right angle. It's going to be pretty close. I think I could probably angle a little bit better than I did. So here's our lock stitch. Absolutely spot on. The spacing, the formation, the integrity of the stitch is exactly as you want to see it. Start to finish, no difference whatsoever. Just absolutely gorgeous. And again, this is 2 layers of Italian leather, folks. It's not an easy peasy task. So I'm going to give that a definite pass. And I'm kind of stepping up my pace a little bit now because I'm seeing my battery dropping down. I do not think I had charged it before I went into the hospital and that, so it's been kind of just sitting there idle, and there can be battery discharge even with you know, something that's sitting idle. So let me see what other sew-offs I have so that in case we run out of time. So here what I have is kind of it's a synthetic material. You can kind of see that on the back. Looking at the camera here. It's kind of a synthetic material on the back. And then it has almost, I can't say for sure that this is leather. It's almost like a fake leather, but I chose it because it's super thin. And I wanted to see if we could buzz through it and just see how the machine does on a super thin layer of material like this. We'll kind of go down and around. Let me get the camera lined up and then hopefully we don't run out of juice too quick. Yeah, it may be leather, but I'm not going to say it is leather for sure. And I don't remember where I got this exactly. So, all right, so let's buzz down and around. And we'll see how Margaret's 201-2 does on this task. Again, we're going super thin, super light. And we'll see if the machine continues to perform at the level that it has been, which is absolutely extraordinary. All right, here we go. May have gone too far down. I probably did. All right, I am going to throttle it up a little bit going down just because I want you to hear at least a small percentage of the power that this 201-2 has now after I've gone through it. All right, you ready? Here we go. I had to stop there because my foot kind of went off the foot control. All right, close enough. Close enough. All right, clip, 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 clip. Good thing about material like this is it's so easy to tell what's the top and what's the bottom. You start getting into where they kind of mirror and match each other, it can get a little bit tricky. All right, let's get that back in place so we're ready for the next. So let's look at that top stitch first. Now I'm going to see if I can brace this a little bit so that... Is that going to stay? The only problem with that super thin stuff is it just doesn't want to... See if I can use Margaret's owner's manual. Kind of give that a little bit more support. I think that'll actually help quite a bit. All right, let's take a look at these stitches before the camera goes poof. Okay, so again, our top stitch is looking absolutely spot on. Yeah, I don't think that's real leather. Well, whatever it is, it gives us a good test of seeing how well the machine is performing. And Margaret's machine is doing an absolutely spectacular job. The stitch formation, spacing, integrity of the stitch, presentation of the stitch, the glory of the stitch is exactly as it should be from start to finish. You just saw it right there. And you can see it from there as well. It's that beautiful. So I'm going to spin it around now. We'll see if we can take a look at the lock stitch. And there's just no difference. Look at those stitches. Spacing, the formation, the integrity of the stitch. Exactly what we want to be seeing. Absolutely spot on. Absolutely spot on. It just doesn't get any better than that, folks. And again, this is answering the call to show us thinner materials being sewn as well. And in both instances, this 201-2 of Margaret's has really said, I got this. I totally got this. So I'm going to throw this to the back as well as a success. And of course, I've got to sneak in some of my genuine elk hide. It just wouldn't be a premiere without genuine elk hide, which is kind of sad because I'm getting really low on the stuff. But hopefully I can get my hands on some more of it. And you know what? I am not going to be able to demonstrate this. I apologize. My camera's blinking right now. I'm going to come out on this shot real quick. I'm totally bummed. I didn't even think about charging the camera because I was down and out. But Margaret, you have an incredible machine. It's performed beautifully today. And I will do the sew-offs on the other materials I didn't have time to on camera. And hopefully we'll be getting this shipped off to you quite soon. So God bless all of you. Thank you for your prayers and thoughts as I recovered from my hospital stay. And what can I say? It's a Rolls-Royce of Singer sewing machines, an absolutely fabulous machine heading to the great state of Oklahoma. I'm so bummed. I wish I'd had enough time for that. All right, let's get this done. That was a little pedal to the metal there. Oh yeah.